besties, welcome back or welcome to the channel if you're new. My name is Kyin and this is Kyin is Booked. We're gonna rank our book club picks so far this year. So my friend Jess, Love to Love Books on Instagram, and I have a book club. It is called The Good, the Bad, the Smutty, and we read a book a month and then we go live on Instagram. Usually it's the last Saturday of every month unless we have something going on, and then we either do 2 books in a month or like we'll push it to the Sunday. But I digress. We are obviously in July, as this is a KyinJuly episode. However, I only have 5 books to talk about because we combined June and July together, and I don't want to talk about the June, July books until we have the live because I don't want to reveal anything before Jess and I have the chance to gossip about them. So we're going to do 5 books, and then I'll do a video like this at the end of the year, and it will have the rest of the books for the year, probably minus December. I don't know. We'll see the timing. However, let's go ahead and kick this off with my least favorite book of the year so far. That is Whispers of Redemption by K.T. Madden. I rated this book 2 stars. I'm going to tell you right now, if I wasn't reading it for a book club pick, then I would just have not finished reading it. My biggest, I don't want to say issue, but my biggest complaint about the book overall were the character motivations. A lot of what was happening wasn't aligning with like who the characters were or made any sense for like their motivations within the story, or like, for example, the male main character goes to prison for 5 years for a specific crime, and then at the tail end of the book commits the same crime. And that's just not in line with the fact that like he decided to make better choices for his future, and he wasn't going to do that anymore. He was going to be on the straight and narrow, things like that. So that was just kind of like a larger example, but I just really didn't understand why the characters were doing what they were doing, especially since it didn't make sense for the character within the story. So 2 stars for this one, and as of right now, it is number 5 on the list. Number 4 is the Beards and Bondage series by Rebecca Witherspoon. So this one is Sanctuary, which is book 2, and Harbor is the 3rd book. Jess and I read these. They were short, so we read both of them in the month of February. I didn't want to split them since we read them in 1 month. So the reason why I have these at 4 and not a higher rank is simply because I really, really loved this story, but Harbor, as agreed on with Jess and I when we discussed it, like we just really didn't understand the character motivations behind like the 3-person couple. It didn't make sense for like how the story was presented. I did really like in Sanctuary, I'm going to read the last one here. She's an attorney who needs to lie low, and Silas is a twin brother of somebody that she knows. So she like goes to his farm to lay low, and he struggles with like social interactions and things like that. So there's really great representation in here for somebody who hasn't been formally diagnosed with autism, but definitely shows signs of being on the spectrum, and, you know, a really beautiful relationship that happens between her and Silas. So I did really enjoy this one. I give this one 4 stars, but it definitely falls in the number 4 category simply because I am ranking Sanctuary and Harbor together. So that is my ultimate motivation here. The next book is Wed to the Alien Warlord by January Bell. This is book 1 in one of her Alien series. And if I remember this correctly, so I hope I'm explaining this correctly. There's an all-female crew who's being sent from essentially what is Earth to this other planet, in hopes of making like really solid relations. And the captain of this group is like really excited because, you know, she is in charge of the first all-girl group, and they're gonna go over there and they're gonna help solve the problems, and they're gonna be ambassadors for Earth, and like this race of aliens is gonna be able to help save their home. But when we come to find out is that they've basically been promised to the alien warriors as brides. And this is what seals like the ultimate deal between their 2 planets, is the females willingly mating with the males. However, the males have agreed to this, but the females don't know. Like, they sent them from Earth to find this out all by themselves, right? I really enjoyed the story. I loved our male main character because as soon as he realized like kind of what was going on and the fact that she didn't know like the agreement that her government had made, he definitely backed off and like waited for her to initiate anything and to like push their relationship forward and like kind of come to terms with the fact that like she can't go back to Earth and that she has to stay with him. And ultimately, I think it's like a really beautiful story between the two of them. And I really, really enjoyed how like he gave her the opportunity to come to terms with the relationship and didn't push her despite his attraction to her, because he had no problems whatsoever with his attraction and his want to be with her. It was just out of respect that he didn't push the envelope. So really enjoyed this story. Definitely an alien series that I want to finish. So I've added January Bell to my TBR because I definitely want to continue reading. Kind of like what I did with Zoe Draven last year when we read Captive of the Horror King. I'm planning on binging her series. So next up, we read Butcher and Blackbird by Brynn Weaver. I remember talking about this with Jess. Like, I didn't in any means like dislike this story, but her and I are usually kind of like behind like the hype, if you will. We don't necessarily read books like right as everybody else is reading them, and we did read this like at the tail end of everybody being really excited about it and having read it, and also too right before Leather and Lark. The book's over there, so I was like making sure I had the second book's title correct. So I did do a decent amount of tabbing when I read it, and I did read it in a physical format, and I really did enjoy the story. Like, it was fun, it was quirky. It just wasn't necessarily like as dark as I was expecting from like a serial killer romance, right? And I understand that like there was still death and there was like still the twists and the turns and all of that, but I feel like it was like more of like a lighthearted rom-com version of serial killers. So not to say I dislike it whatsoever. I really enjoyed it, but I definitely gave it 4 stars. I am excited to read Leather and Lark. Like, I didn't dislike it, and I like the fact that it's going to be a trilogy following brothers, and I like the fact that our heroine from the story is best friend with Lark, so it's like a, you know, like best friends, like brother-in-law romance, but I'm just gonna say it's a best friends brother romance. So there's that. Really enjoy this one. If you have not, my goodness, had an opportunity to pick it up, I highly recommend it. And if you've been watching our book club and if you've been watching my videos, then you already know Vicious Bonds by Shanora Williams is arguably one of my favorite books of the year. It's one of the first books I read this year too. So like, this is like a reigning favorite. This was our January book club pick, and it's ironic because Jess's son Archer picked it because he thought the cover was cool. And then both Jess and I read it and we're like, obsessed. So this is a fantasy romance. Oh, it's hilarious because Jess actually bought this for me as a, like, I have the gift receipt back here. Okay, so anyways, so this follows Kaz and Willow, and they are connected. They're able to speak to each other in their minds, but like they don't realize it just yet. So like both of them kind of think like they're going crazy because like they hear another person in their brain. And it's kind of the story of how like she falls from Earth and like into his dimension, and the aspect of like being literal enemies, but having to realize that like they have a common goal of trying to figure out what's going on in their brains, but also at the same time that it's a much bigger picture, and it turns out to be much more than originally meets the eye between the two of them. And it's their fantasy romance, it's their romance as they traverse like different realms and different like fantasy societies to try and figure out why the bond between them is so strong, but also what the bond ultimately means and like what the world and the dimensions need them to do with this bond. So I absolutely love it. I think it's like the 3rd or 4th video that I've talked about this in within the last week and a half. I can't recommend this enough, and it's definitely my reigning favorite for the good, the bad, the smutty book club so far. I will be very interested to see if any books can topple this one, or if my first read, like one of my first reads of the year, is going to stand strong. So just a short, sweet little video of like where we stand with the book club picks so far this year. Let me know if you've read any of the books in the comments below, or if you've participated in book clubs. Did you find any new things? Did you agree with any of these or disagree with any of these? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Be sure to subscribe because don't worry, I've got some more coming for you, especially like a little chaotic vlog probably here in the next couple of days. And as always, I will catch you in the next video. Bye.